Hello, my name is Elliot Chapman and I'm a psychodynamic therapist. I've been working with TG Lynes for the last 2 years on a fortnightly basis. They've asked me to put together a short video on anxiety. So here's a little bit more information about anxiety, understanding it and also how we can manage it. So anxiety is a feeling of unease such as worry or fear, and it can really vary from very mild to very severe. Now, how it can manifest itself or how it can show itself in the body or in our behaviour is a sense of nervousness, a restlessness. We can feel very nauseous. We can have rushing thoughts. We can have an inability to think about anything else apart from what we're worried about. What I want to make very clear here is that everybody has or will experience anxiety in some way, shape or form. So it's a very normal thing to experience. And what we're going to look to do over the next couple of minutes is just try and understand it a little bit more and look to see how we can work with it. Anxiety ultimately is something that keeps us safe. It keeps us alert. So it's almost like an inbuilt alarm system. So it's very, very clever. And one of the ways I like to look at anxiety is ultimately it's like a message. So it's a message from our brain or our psyche telling us that there's something we're not comfortable with or there's something that needs attending to. Now, whether that's something from the background in the past that's been lingering, that's not been addressed, or whether there's something that's forthcoming or there's something going on in our lives at this moment in time, be it a relationship or a circumstance which is causing anxiety. It's ultimately about bringing us an indication that something needs addressing. Now, as a psychodynamic counsellor, first and foremost, before we get into the sort of territory where we're looking at tools and things and trying to manage it, for me, it's very much about trying to understand where things come from. So it's about applying that curiosity. What is it that I'm feeling? What feelings are coming up for me? Why might I be feeling that about this situation? Or what is it that's been going on that maybe I've not been thinking about and maybe this is distracting me away from? So it's just applying that curiosity to sort of investigate in a really compassionate and gentle way, but try and basically get some understanding, some awareness, so we've got something to really work with and try and kind of note what might be driving behavior or what might be influencing the way we feel, and also maybe get a bit of awareness about the fact that maybe every time a certain situation occurs, we have a similar response. So just really trying to understand ourselves and give ourselves the best possible chance to get familiar with what is actually going on for us. So before we start talking about things we can implement to help us manage our anxiety, I want to talk about how we approach our general health. There are some fundamentals which get overlooked, but they have a huge part to play in our general well-being. Now, these include exercise. Ideally, we need to be exercising multiple times a week. Okay, we need to move, and not to mention that the byproduct of exercise is endorphins, which are our happy hormones. And exercise also on a stress could be something as simple as walking, or it could be something as simple as walking the dog. It could be out playing football, squash, frisbee, cycling, whatever it looks like for you. It can be a different thing every time you exercise. It could be the same thing 3, 4, 5 times a week. But just making sure that we are moving is very important. Secondly, sleep. Sleep is hugely underestimated, but is a massive contributing factor to our well-being in terms of our hormones, our mood, our physical and cognitive function, and the amount of rest and repair that takes place as well. So it's also making sure that we prioritize enough sleep and that we give ourselves the best chance to get the most restful sleep. So minimal caffeine, minimal alcohol. All right, maybe we think about dropping the caffeine back so that after 2 p.m. we don't drink any, to give us the best possible chance to get into a deep and restful sleep when we do actually go to bed. Diet is really important, that what we feed our bodies is good quality. So get a good nutritional balanced diet, giving ourselves the best possible chance to run on fuel that helps us feel good, and trying to avoid periods where we're not eating and skipping meals and maybe trying to get by on snacks and stimulants to try and give us enough energy. Unfortunately, the byproducts of these are more internal stress and increases in cortisol and jumps and dips in blood sugar, which can have an effect on cortisol, and as a result of that stress and also feed into anxiety. So to give ourselves the best possible chance, we're trying to eat regularly and we're trying to eat good nutritional food. We also want to make sure that we're hydrated. We need to be hydrated if we want to function cognitively at our best. We need to be hydrated, and also physically and for the body to work at its most efficient level, we need to make sure that we're drinking enough water. What I also want to add to the list here is making sure there's enough time for social engagement. So whether that's going for a walk with a friend, going for a coffee with a friend, just generally spending time with people, one person, two people, a group of people, friends, family, loved ones, just making sure there's enough time for good quality social connection. So, how do we work with anxiety? How do we manage anxiety? I've already stated that for me, I very much like to try and get into the roots of things, try and get an understanding and an awareness about where things are coming from, so we can really try and work out why a situation or why we're feeling the way we are. But there's some other things we can also bring into the mix here, which can help us work with the situation, certainly reduce anxiety, help us gain a bit of clarity and just feel a bit more grounded. First exercise I want to bring into the equation here is breathing. So breathing allows us to alter our nervous system, so change it into a parasympathetic nervous system, which is the calmer state. Okay, so when we're feeling anxious, our sympathetic nervous system is very much in control, and what we're trying to do is shift it into our parasympathetic nervous system. And how we're going to do that is we're going to inhale for 4 seconds. We're going to exhale for 8. So making sure the exhalation is longer than the inhalation, in this case double the length, to create a nice sense of calm and safety. So repeated multiple times, maybe you aim for somewhere between 2 and 5 minutes initially to give yourself a chance just to feel nice and grounded and feel that shift in the nervous system. Now, something which works well alongside this or in place of this is mindfulness, and I think the most commonly known exercise with regards to mindfulness is meditation. And why meditation is beneficial is because it brings us into the present moment. So it's coming back into the present moment and stopping our head get caught in the future or mixed up with something that we've experienced. So it's a case of bringing us back to this present moment in time where we can regain that sense of calm and regain that sense of composure and almost bring our mind back to the here and now, as opposed to being caught up in what could be potentially about to happen or what has just happened. And that might be something, particularly if you're an anxious person, which you start to do on a daily basis, even if you're not feeling anxious, but you just hone it as a skill and you develop that muscle, how to bring yourself back into the present moment. Same with breath work. It's something that can be done on a daily basis. Doesn't have to just be when you're anxious. And if you get a good strong practice, which you do on a daily basis, when you are anxious, you'll be able to bring it into play quicker and effectively. Journaling. So the great thing about journaling is it's very therapeutic. So we're talking about handwriting here. So there's something that's special that happens when the brain and the hand connect, and we're able to write about our feelings and our thoughts in a very open way. So I don't tend to worry too much about the structure with this. I think it's quite useful if it's quite a free process. So it's writing in a from a place where you're not judging yourself on how it looks or what the spelling looks like, or maybe there's expletives here, there, and everywhere. But it's just a case of getting things out onto paper so that you can see what you've got going on in here. But also, there's something very therapeutic about almost trying to work through what's going on, make sense of your own thoughts. So that is also a great process. Again, that can be done when you're not anxious. It can be done when you are anxious. It can be done every day. It can just be done when things do feel a bit much and you feel like you need something. It's almost like self-therapy. So we've talked about exercise as well, but a way of kind of working in terms of trying to create an energy shift and trying to calm us down is to get ourselves into nature. So maybe we go for a walk in a woodland or in a forest or by a river or somewhere where we're exposed to the elements, and we get a chance to gain a sense of calm by walking, being out in the fresh air and just being around natural elements. So self-talk can be really, really useful in situations where we're feeling anxious. And one of the exercises we can do is remind ourselves that we are safe. And that literally would be us in our own heads. Or if you feel that you've got enough privacy and you want to say it out loud, you can say it out loud, or maybe you want to do it in a mirror. But certainly in our heads, we can be telling ourselves, I am safe, I am safe. And if you feel really comfortable, or maybe you're in a situation where you've got a bit more privacy and you want to put a hand over your heart and a hand over your tummy, And you can repeat the mantra, I am safe, whether it's in your head or out loud. This can be really, really effective. And also just making a note of how we do speak to ourselves is a really important factor as well, and making sure that we're being kind to ourselves where possible. So self-talk's important, but it's also really valuable to be able to talk, whether that's to a therapist, to a friend, to a co-worker, family member, to a loved one. Just being able to relieve that pressure of holding on to all these feelings can be really, really, really beneficial. And it might be you don't even need them to say anything back. Maybe you just need them to listen. Maybe you don't need any advice, but you just need to feel heard. And also what it can help us do is hear ourselves think out loud. Maybe it's not even that, maybe it is just relieving that pressure, or maybe it's just allowing us to formulate our thoughts and gain a bit more clarity over what's going on for us. Something else we can also throw into the mix here is an exercise where we challenge the thought. So if we have a particular persistent thought and it very much feels like one-way traffic, then we can actually just hold for a second, challenge the thought. How do I know this to be true? What evidence do I have showing me that this is true? And all we're doing here is creating a little bit of space. We're taking the power out of the thought and we're just opening ourselves to another potential way of thinking about the situation. An exercise that many people find beneficial when they're feeling anxious is to drive the attention to their senses. So 5 things they can see, 4 things they can touch, 3 things they can hear, 2 things they can smell, and 1 thing they can taste. So we're driving the attention away from the thoughts into our senses and getting our body involved. A little bonus factor I'd like to bring into the equation here is what we expose ourselves to. Now, what I mean by this is the media that we consume. So what we consume through our eyes and our ears, essentially what we feed our mind. You know, we talked about what we feed our bodies and what we fuel our bodies on. But the fact of the matter is that what we see, what we hear, what we consume, mentally, cognitively has a huge impact on our well-being. So just being very aware of how we feel when we consume certain content, and maybe limiting content where the after effect is that we don't feel good, and maybe increasing the exposure to content where actually the byproduct is that we do feel good. I hope this video on anxiety has been helpful. If you want to talk to me in more detail about anxiety or anything else mental health wise, then please let one of the mental health first aiders know and we can do so.